Welcome to Moneyline MMA coverage of UFC 286. This will be Edwards versus Usman the third for the welterweight belt. And boy, this is going to be an interesting fight happening during the day here in America because they're going to be over in London, England at the O2 Arena. So this fight will be starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, so 12 Central with the prelims, and I believe it's 5 o'clock Central when the main card starts. So it's going to be a little bit earlier than usual, but still a pretty good time for us in the U.S. to get the fights in and then do a little pregame and for our Saturday night festivities. So that being said, we're going to get right into things, but before we get into our picks for this card, let's talk a little bit about what happened last Saturday. And boy, Jose, it was a little bit of a tough one for both of us, but I'd say a little bit more so on your end of things, mainly because the ones that we disagreed on were mostly in my favor, and not to pat my back or anything, but Krylov did get the win against Span. Martinez did get the win against Nurmagomedov. But both of our really confident picks, man, they lost. So I definitely didn't have a great night either. I at least hit 500 in terms of overall win-loss picks, but man, haven't seen how bad Romanov was. It is absolutely disappointing. He's clearly looking like a complete UFC bust. And Petr Yan didn't even win a round. Enough said there. Moving on to this fight, though, we're going to bounce back with our heaviest weight pick here because this one I think is pretty easy in my opinion. I'm going with Gunnar Nelson. He's fighting a guy who just lost by submission to RDA, and I know he's talking a lot about being ready for it and asking and being upset about it and training. But honestly, man, I don't think he's, in my opinion, it's not going to be enough. Gunnar Nelson is looking like the heaviest favorite right now on this main card, at least at minus 430 with Bryan Barberena at plus 300. Jose, what do you have for this one?
So, yeah, for this fight, I, like you, also have Gunnar Nelson taking the W, but he's actually my one weight. And reason being is Bryan Barberena is a legit threat. He's beaten some UFC vets like Robbie Lawler and Matt Brown. And Gunnar Nelson, he's only on a one-fight winning streak, and he lost two before, but of course to the champ Leon Edwards and Gilbert Burns, so no shame there. But Bryan Barberena does have a high striking percentage. He throws 5.92 significant strikes per minute, while Gunnar Nelson only throws 1.83. Yes, Gunnar Nelson is probably the better grappler here, but just because of the level of competition that Bryan Barberena has actually proven to beat, that's why I'm a little actually surprised to see that he's such a big underdog. So that's why I have Gunnar Nelson. I think he should win this. I don't know if I'll go by decision. If he wins it, I'd probably see it by submission. But yeah, I have him as my one way because Bryan Barberena is a legit threat for real.
For sure. I do like Bryan Barberena a lot. I just don't, especially because of his aggressiveness. I think he's a fans fighter in the sense that you get some exciting fights. He has gone to decision for a couple of his wins, but and losses when he lost to Leon Edwards back in 2017. But in the most case, I think you get pretty exciting fights when you see Barberena step in the cage. And I've always personally and had a great time watching his fights. I just don't think he's ready. That loss against RDA is mainly what I'm looking at, and I don't think one camp can completely turn you around. Maybe I'm wrong. There are some coaches and some guys out there who can completely change themselves in one fight camp. I just don't think this is going to be one of those cases. I will take Gunnar Nelson to win. I will take Gunnar Nelson by submission. He might not be a belt holder necessarily in this division, being the welterweight division, but I think he's going to be, at the very worst, one of those gatekeeper guys that keeps the guys like Barberena kind of at the lower tier of the division, not getting their shot at the title.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Nick. Gunnar Nelson, definitely a legend, but he's not been as competitive. I feel like as Bryan Barberena as well. So I am still sticking with Gunnar Nelson as my one way. Again, I do believe he should get the win. Again via submission, because Bryan Barberena, he just lost, like you said, to RDA via submission his last fight. But again, anything can happen. But Gunnar Nelson's my one way, and you can expect that to be our lock of the week with Nick and I agreeing on this one.
Who do we got? All right, who do you got for your five then?
For my five weight, well, I got the former champ Kamaru Usman. I, you
Okay.
know, right now, Kamaru Usman, he is the betting favorite at minus 260, while Leon Edwards is the betting underdog at plus 196. Kind of crazy to see that the champion be the underdog, but if we also, how we saw how it went down last time, I guess it's not too surprising. But before I get too into it, what weight do you have this fight at, Nick?
So I'll just be straightforward right now. I've got Edwards at my one weight spot. So this is a disagreement, but a lower confidence disagreement on my end being my one weight. I honestly, man, I've been back and forth on this fight. 2 weeks ago, I would have been with you, Kamaru Usman 5 weight. As the time goes by, man, I'm starting to think more and more that Usman might win this fight, and he probably arguably should win the fight, but I think this is just going to be closer. I understand he was winning through to the fifth round when he got knocked out, but I think this is just going to be more competitive. I think we're going to see a better version of Leon Edwards. And even if Kamaru Usman wins, I think it's going to be a closer fight up until the point where we learn that Kamaru Usman wins.
I agree with you that, yeah, and I think it's almost fitting. Like, yeah, if you go with Usman, I think it's fair to say to put him at a 5 weight based off his last performance. And if you go with Edwards, I do say that I agree with the 1 weight there too, just because how Hail Mary that kind of was. But for this fight, to be honest, it can be kind of a situation with Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan. First fight, Peter Yan dominated, even though Eljo walked away with the belt. Peter Yan was dominating that. And then second round, Aljamain Sterling proved everyone wrong. And that's something I think Leon Edwards actually can do, especially even though I have Kamaru Usman as my 5 weight, I do think Kamaru Usman's days as being in his prime are coming down and are very limited because of his knees. Walt Harris and Joe Rogan have both admitted to like Kamaru Usman's knee problems, where Kamaru Usman straight up during fight week against Leon Edwards, he had to walk down backwards stairs to avoid putting too much pressure on his knees. And as well as he can't even walk on concrete. He prefers to walk like on grass just because how much it hurts his knees. So hearing stuff like that does concern me. But knowing that he actually felt that pain the last time he fought Leon Edwards and was still able to dominate him up until that fatal mistake at the end of just getting head kicked. Yeah, like if he was able to do that last time to Leon Edwards, I think he can do it again. And I think, Kamaru Usman has such high level fight IQ that I do think he can make the adjustments to beat Leon Edwards. And if he were to go that route, I do think it may be just completely out wrestle him to unanimous decision. I think the fight probably wouldn't be as exciting if he goes that route. But if you're just such a dominant wrestler, it's crazy. Like Kamzat, John Jones, Khabib, like it's just, why wouldn't you just do it and just pound your way to victory? And I don't, because again, even if he wins this, I don't know if Kamaru Usman is going to want to stay in the UFC for too long, just based off the rumors of his knees and his health in terms of knee health. So for this one, I do have Kamaru Usman again, just because he dominated last time while he was hurt. So I think he can do it again. But yeah, like I said, if I were to go Leon Edwards, I would have him as my 1 weight because he is overall, he is an extremely dominant striker. And if it wasn't for Kamaru Usman, I do think Leon Edwards would be a long-time champ as well.
This could even turn into like a middleweight type situation before Alex Pereira came in the picture, where it was like Izzy, and then it was Whitaker, and then it was whoever the hell else decided to get ranked after those guys. It didn't matter, and it kind of still is like that. And now Alex Pereira is in the mix, so it's like the trio. But regardless, this could be kind of like that. Granted, you make a good point. I don't think Usman is going to continue to fight that much longer. His age is getting up there. And that's one thing that continues to drive my confidence in Edwards down, which is why he's my 1 weight, because I think Usman has a lot of motivation here. I think, mentally he's going to be just fine going in. And if anything, at the advantage spot, because he's going to want that belt. He's going to want to, right off into the sunset as a champion. And like you said, man, he dealt with those knee issues. I mean, you were the one person mainly to bring that up to my attention back when we were first talking about this fight. And I agree with you that he kind of went through those same struggles the first fights. I'm sure before their first fight, when Usman had to defend his belt against Colby and stuff, I'm sure his knees weren't perfect then either. So it's just one of those things where I think as a man, he steps into the cage and that outside shit almost just doesn't matter anymore. So all those reasons, man, is kind of why I've been going back and forth on this fight. And I've landed on Edwards being my one weight, and I'm sticking with it for the show. I think he's got great underdog value, like he said, and he has the chance. I mean, his nickname's Rocky for a reason. It's almost poetic how he became. He was down and out, and with seconds left, he gets a KO knockout, and now he's fighting it at home behind his home crowd. I mean, it's going to be electric, man. It's going to be something to see. And who's to say who my final pick is going to be come Saturday, if I'm being honest?
Yeah, I agree with, and like again, I still have Usman as my 5 weight, but if I were to lean Edwards, it's definitely my 1 weight, because if Edwards were to still lose regardless, it's like, well, we kind of expect maybe Usman to come out the way he would, and I'm expecting him to try to out wrestle Leon Edwards and probably not want to stay on the feet long.
Yeah, dude, and that actually reminds me about another point that you brought up there. Look at what Francis did to Gane with the bum knees. To what degree could Usman do that with Leon? He pretty handedly wrestled Leon in their previous matchups. I mean, to what degree will that change? I don't know, man. He landed 5 takedowns on Leon Edwards last year. Excuse me, he attempted 12 takedowns, landed 5. I was looking at the wrong stats there. So he was at 41%, but hey, man, if he really wanted, he could shoot for 20 and land at 8 or 9, man. That might win him a round or two alone. So we'll see. We'll really see. It's going to be crazy to watch, to be honest. But that being
Yeah, and I
said,
agree.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to move on. If we have our discussion done with that fight, then those are our 5 weights, our most confident picks. Let's move on to our second most confident picks, which for me, my 4 weight is going to be Rafael Fiziev. And this is going to be a crazy co-main event, man, in the lightweight division. Honestly, I think it's a sin that this is 3 rounds. I get it's not for a belt, but wow, the implications on this division. I feel like, outside of course, getting a rematch between Islam and Volkanovski, the winner between these two guys might just have to be the next in line for the belt chance. For this to be 3 rounds is definitely, it's like, dang, man, this should be 5. But without going too far, I will say that Fiziev is the minus 260 favorite here. Gaethje's plus 196 as the underdog. Jose, what's your weight on this one?
Yeah, so for this fight, I actually have Justin Gaethje, and I have him as my 4 weight. Reason being is, I'll jump right into it. Dude, a lot of people like to think him as a brawler, but I honestly think he's just been looking better and better as he keeps fighting in terms of his boxing technicality, especially being with Trevor Whitman out there. He's trains with Kamaru Usman, so he's in Rose Namajunas, so he trains with champions. He trains with the best of the best, and he's from we entered the UFC till now, when he fought Michael Chandler, Michael Chandler's looked way more of a brawler than what Justin Gaethje did. And Justin Gaethje, even though he doesn't use his wrestling a lot, he has phenomenal wrestling defense. When Chandler tried to take him down, Gaethje stuffed most of them, and it's just something that a lot of people don't really think about. But when Chandler was shooting on him, he tried to blast double him hard, and it was just like Gaethje just kind of shrugged it off because he has good D1 wrestling. And Rafael Fiziev, he's a very technical fighter, and I like how he looked against RDA, but I think the level of competition that he's had compared to Justin Gaethje doesn't compare. Justin Gaethje throws 7.46 significant strikes per minute, while Rafael Fiziev throws 4.81. So it is going to be a high volume striking match, and I'm not too concerned about it going to the ground. I don't think Rafael is going to be able to submit Justin the way Khabib or Charles Oliveira did. So that's where I have that. I have Justin Gaethje winning this. He has such great power that I honestly think he's either going to win unanimous decision or possibly put out Rafael Fiziev.
Okay. Yeah, man. I think I lean more of this being a striking match as well. Fiziev has some history in the UFC, specifically grappling and stuff, but not as much. I don't think Gaethje even has landed a takedown. Fiziev has a couple, but specifically what I'm looking at is how well he was able to defend against RDA. But like you said, it's not going to be a big factor against Gaethje. They're going to look to brawl. Gaethje's output is ridiculous. And look, I think Fiziev I think he's extremely technical. I understand he hasn't seen the same level of competition as Gaethje, but in this case, I don't think it's going to matter as much. He had like a relatively extensive Muay Thai professional career before going in the UFC and the MMA route. So he may only have 13 fights under his belt currently, but there's a lot more professional fights that he has seen in his days. Maybe not quite as much as the level of competition as Gaethje, but in all that being said, I do think Fiziev is ready for this moment. He's 30. I think he's a little shorter than Gaethje, so the size, you might see a little bit of a size difference, but I don't think it's going to be enough to matter. I think Fiziev is going to be able to carry this through, man. Again, I do wish this was 5 rounds. Fiziev really pushed the pressure. I was impressed that he was able to get the 5th round knockout on RDA, not just a knockout, but that was a late in the fight. Like, he was pressuring him. I love to see that kind of endurance, and Gaethje's going to be bringing it too. Gaethje's the kind of guy who will do his sprints in the low oxygen and the altitude and stuff like that. So these dudes are going to bring it. I would not expect this fight to be a finish. In all honesty, that might be one of the more confident things I have to say. Also, on top of my 4-weight in Fiziev, is that this fight's going to cut before the judges need to get involved.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And yeah, if Fiziev, I don't know if he can knock out Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje hasn't been knocked out since 2018, or at least TKO'd since 2018. And so I think maybe Fiziev, he may have to try to look for a submission against Justin Gaethje, because that does seem to be his kryptonite. But again, Justin Gaethje's losses are to Khabib and Charles Oliveira, so I don't know if Fiziev's grappling compares to theirs. But I agree. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I agree. I wish it was 5 rounds itself. Because I'm interested to see how Rafael Fiziev's power will do against Justin Gaethje's, because Justin Gaethje has a chin, and he's shown many times that even though he's hurt, he's still in the fight. But with that being said, yeah, this one we're going to have to agree to disagree, of having Rafael Fiziev and Justin Gaethje as our 4 weights respectively.
Yeah, man, I'm just saying, Justin Gaethje's 34 years old. That chin of his can't be that good forever, man. One of these dudes is going to knock him, and he's forever going to have a lessened ability to take strong blows. I don't know. I don't think we're going to ever see Justin Gaethje as good as he has already been in the past, in his wins against Chandler, Tony Ferguson, Edson Barboza, and stuff like that. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm a big fan of Gaethje, especially as an American. Always behind Gaethje. I don't know, man. At that age, he'd really have to turn it around, I think, to make something happen. But yeah, that being said, that covers both of our 4 weights. So we would move on to Jose. We can go with your first if you want. Your 3 weight.
So yeah, so for my 3-weight, I got Casey O'Neill getting the dub over Jennifer Maia. Right now, Casey O'Neill is the betting favorite at -192, while Jennifer Maia is the betting underdog at +148. Reason being, well, before I get into this one, Nick, what weight do you have this fight at?
Dude, this one was another tough one for me because I like Casey O'Neill as a prospect, and especially with some of the other women's MMA prospects like Erin Blanchfield, we've seen just kind of come up and be an underdog, or be one of those fighters that people doubt and don't think can do it, and all of a sudden there they are doing it. Boom. And all of a sudden, Valentina Shevchenko is getting choked out by Alexa Grasso. It's just crazy. So it's like a hesitation thing for me, which is why for my 2-weight, my pick has been Jennifer Maia. So I will go with the underdog here. I think she's just got a lot of experience, and I think that she's got a lot going her way in terms of the matchup for this fight. I don't know. We'll see, man. It's one of those things where I'm not as confident with the 2-weight, but Casey O'Neill just doesn't have the same experience. I'm going to continue to doubt the young talent until they prove themselves, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you, man. Like, yeah, Casey, she's not been in the UFC as long, but while she has, she's been able to rack up an average of 8.65 significant strikes landed per minute. And I kind of like those odds, given that what her reach is compared to Jennifer Maia's. Right now, Jennifer Maia has a 64-inch reach, and while Casey O'Neill has a 69-inch reach. So I think that 5-inch reach advantage and her high output of strikes is going to play a big factor in this. I think if Jennifer Maia were to get the win, if she were to win, I think it would go by her strength in grappling via submission. But Casey O'Neill's never been submitted in her career, so who knows? This could be the first time. But I do have this. Yeah, again, I have this fight at as my 3-weight for Casey O'Neill. I kind of think that there's a bright future for her, given just her size as well for this weight division. And she actually has a higher takedown average more than Jennifer Maia. But again, it can be kind of inflated just because of how little she's been in the UFC. But I just, again, her size and reach is kind of like a big factor in this one. And also her age. She's 25 while Jennifer Maia is 34. So I think that youth is also going to play a kind of a role in this matchup, Nick.
I hear you, man. I agree, but I see it in a different way than you because I'm seeing 8.5 strikes landed, and that's a fantastic number. But all of her opponents are kind of opponents, in my opinion. I get Antonina Shevchenko is probably the best opponent she's beat, but even she's lost multiple other fights to similar level fighters. So I'm just not impressed by the fighters that she's beaten. I think Jennifer Maia is a huge step up in competition. And if she's able to win, then no doubt about it, she's earned my respect. But until then, I definitely lean with the girl who has more experience, and the fact that I get she's older at 34, but we kind of Gaethje's also 34. We're looking at it's the same kind of question of does the experience outweigh the youth? And it's going to depend on it's a fighter by fighter basis. Everyone has different amounts of injuries and ailments and mental things that get in the way and hurdle them to being the best fighter that they can be. So there's things that we're never going to be able to predict that are going on with some of the fighters, but just looking at what I can see, I see Maia with a little bit more experience against fighters like Caitlin Chikagi and Valentina Shevchenko instead of Antonina, and maybe she'll be able to use some of that knowledge to take out the young girl. And not to say Casey O'Neill doesn't have a bright future. I just don't think her future is going to be necessarily undefeated for that much longer.
I hear, man. Yeah, fair enough. So I think that settles that. You will both agree to disagree on this fight as well. I have Casey O'Neill as my 3-weight, and you have Jennifer Maia as your 2-weight.
Sounds good. Sounds good. That leaves us then to one last fight. And this fight is going to be the opener of the main card. And just obviously by proxy of having discussed our heaviest weights first, it's one of the fights that both of us are less confident in, I should say. But it's my 3-weight with Marvin Vettori against Roman Dolidze. And this is an interesting middleweight match. But Vettori's coming off of a tough he really kind of got humbled, I would say. I said it, I believe, earlier in the show, where the middleweight class has sections, and it's clear that Robert Whitaker is that section right below Izzy, and there's a huge gap there. But in that gap after there, I think Vettori is one of the higher end fighters that remains. He's beaten Kevin Holland and Jack Hermansson. And speaking of Jack Hermansson, that's the guy Roman Dolidze has just recently beaten as well. So common opponents for these guys. But obviously, I don't want to continue to ramble for too long. Vettori's a minus 295 favorite, so a pretty heavy favorite on the card, but not as heavy as Gunnar. Dolidze is plus 220. Jose, what's your weight on this?
Yeah, so for this fight, I myself also have Marvin Vettori, and he's my 2-weight. Reason being is I just think the level of competition he's had to Roman is just a lot better. Like he lost to Robert Whitaker, he got humbled by him, and before that he lost to Israel Adesanya as well. He does have a win against Paulo Costa in between, and I think if Marvin Vettori, he's my 2-weight because if he's going to win, there's a clear-cut path what he needs to do, and that's kind of like what I said about what Usman needs to do with Leon Edwards. He pretty much needs to utilize his wrestling dominance and just ground and pound him to victory. Roman Dolidze, he does have some pretty impressive wins, but I think the 3 guys he beat in a row, I think all of them are kind of like on a losing skid right now with Jack Hermansson, Kyle Dawkins, I know for sure. Phil Haas, I believe so as well. So this will definitely be Dolidze's toughest challenge yet, and I think that his record is probably, I don't know, like probably gonna take. He's 12-1, and he may end up being 12-2. Is what I'm trying to say. Because I think Marvin Vettori is a lot better than what we he kind of gets credit for. Again, losses to Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya, no shame in that. But besides that, he was on a fantastic winning streak. And again, a win over Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa showed, again, like he still got something in him. People kind of wrote him off after the Izzy fight, but after that Luke Rockhold fight, I think, it's an impressive win for sure. So yeah, this one again, not to beat dead horse, but yeah, I got Marvin Vettori as my 2-weight.
It's so then that's going to be our second most confident pick, just with our weights added up there. We had five combined on Gunnar, but we had 6 on Gunnar because of my 5-weight. So that'll be our second most confident pick of the pod. And I pretty much second everything you said, with adding the fact that Dolidze's history is a quick finisher, but he's personally never been finished early. And it's the exact same with Vettori. Never been finished early. If either of these guys have lost in their history, it's been by decision. And personally, I don't see Dolidze finishing Vettori early, and I'll take Dolidze to lose the decision at the end. So that's kind of, if I had to go so far as to make a prediction, it would be Vettori by decision here, by points. I think that's kind of, it's going to open the card. I think it's going to set the pace with a decent fight, but I don't think we're going to see these guys necessarily shooting for the stars in round one. But I could be wrong because, like I said, Dolidze has relied on some quick finishes. I just think Vettori's going to be able to kind of knock him down and maybe go to the grappling if he needs to, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely second that on Marvin most likely winning by unanimous decision. And who knows, he probably could put Dolidze out, but Marvin Vettori, his last fight against Robert Whittaker was his first fight in the 4 fights before that were all 5 rounders. He went all the way to decision, and he won 3 out of 4 of those. So Marvin Vettori, I think just his cardio, his experience, just everything overall, to me, just says he should get this win, and he's good enough to get a unanimous decision. And he possibly could put Dolidze out, but I'm seconding you on the unanimous decision win.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that was going to be our picks then. Moneyline MMA endorsed for UFC 286. We're both very excited to see this one, and definitely follow us on Twitter at Moneyline MMA to get our final picks on Saturday. Because I still am kind of still on the fence about that main event. Jose is not. He's very confident in Kamaru Usman, and come Saturday, I might be agreeing with him. But the main thing you can count on is that we aren't going to be agreeing on the co-main event. And if you think I'm going to continue my hot streak of being right against Jose, you're going to want to go with Rafael Fiziev this Saturday. Otherwise, Justin Gaethje is your guy. But again, follow us and also subscribe here on YouTube. We're going to be continuing to release weekly videos for these fights. Love to have 2 pay-per-view fights in the month, but we're going to continue with fight nights after this. So the action does not stop for the UFC or Moneyline MMA. We'll see you guys next week.